Wah! You like that? Huh? You like that? Wah! You just tune this out, don't you? Wah! Well, tune this out!
Okay, a top 10 list that's not about South Park or shows I will never review. Actually, that's a little inaccurate. I think I made a video about the SpongeBob movie, the third one, and about 3 years ago, I did one on the scariest Steven Universe episode, and I was quite proud of that video. It even got recognized by Jake Neutron, but it got flagged for reused content, and I had to delete it. That sucks. Maybe I should remake it. Anyhow, hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy, or more specifically, Brian Griffin. Again, sorry, it's just that this guy has so much potential for a discussion. I think we all know by now that Brian is the most hated character in Family Guy, for a plethora of reasons. Not helping is how he probably got flanderized the worst out of everybody. Don't get me wrong, I don't feel bad for most of the main characters, but I do find their antics entertaining from time to time. Brian, usually, I don't find him entertaining or sympathetic, and usually it's like he brings it upon himself. So, outside of plain existing, we're gonna count down the top 10 worst things Brian has done. However, we're gonna have to lay down some ground rules. Well, more like one. It has to be something he did in the episode itself. Cutaways, unfortunately, don't count. Well, funny, they aren't always canon. Just so you know, if I included cutaways, this would be the worst thing he did.
Hurry! I can't hold it!
Okay, let me just unstrap my baby.
Oh, slipping, sorry.
Well then, let's discuss. These are the top 10 worst things Brian Griffin has done outside of existing.
Night, Stewie. Lights out.
Time for honorable mentions, or as some people have wanted me to call them, dishonorable mentions. Okay, this section, I'll be honest, is just episodes I really wanted to include. I just never found a place to put them. I only had 10 spots, and to be honest, that was super limiting. No joke, I actually might have enough material left over for a part 2. Regardless, I'm gonna level with you. This is probably the hardest top 10 list I've ever made. At least with South Park, I normally have a pretty good idea about what to add. The issue is knowing where to put it. So I'm just gonna run them down, say what he did, why he didn't make it, yada yada yada. The incident with Jess. We'll get to that later. Mom's the word. Probably my least favorite Brian episode. It's an episode I've spent more than 3 years trying to talk about. In the episode, he tells Stewie there is no afterlife.
That's not comforting at all!
Well, I just think it's pretty clear that we're all just bags of bones and flesh that eventually break down and decay into worm food.
And this drives Stewie to try and commit not alive because he no longer thinks there's a point to living.
Did you hear him, Rupert? Life is just a big joke. It's just sitting around waiting to die. Well, I can't live like that.
Yeah, thanks, Bri. For me personally, this is my least favorite Brian Griffin moment. I'm sure you know by now, one of my biggest pet peeves is when cartoons try to argue for atheism or be realistic, and then at the same time, they have the characters meet with Jesus or the devil, or include some kind of an afterlife. What's worse is, in episodes like Not All Dogs Go to Heaven, they act like he's in the right. This time, it felt like Brian ruined a child's perception on life just to maintain some kind of moral high ground. And play it again, Brian. He assaulted Lois. I already talked about this one. No use in beating a dead horse. He's not Jared. Then there's that time he cheated on Rita and Brian's got a brand new bag, despite the fact he spent the whole episode preaching against relationships with massive age gaps.
This is what's wrong with society. Nobody bats an eye if a woman dates an older man, but God forbid it's the other way around. There is nothing wrong with me dating Rita.
I almost included it like literally this close, but another episode won out. And finally, excellence in broadcasting, where he tried to waterboard Nancy Pelosi to show how much of a great Republican he was.
Yeah, traditional values!
It was so terrible that even Rush Limbaugh, one of her biggest critics, was appalled.
Brian, look, there is no victory unless people know why they were wrong to disagree with you in the first place.
Right now, Now my problem seems to be that I am talking to a Pelosi lover.
What?
Yeah, that's right. You love Pelosi.
Fun fact, in real life, Seth and Rush were close friends. Now on to the actual list. Number 10, violating Seabreeze.
Oh my god.
He's violating Seabreeze. No, he's just awkwardly positioning himself. Now he's violating Seabreeze.
PETA, if it isn't obvious by now, Brian Griffin is a dog. I know, I shattered your entire viewpoint of the world, and now you're going to experience an existential crisis of epic proportions. But yes, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Brian Griffin is a dog. And with dogs, oh my god, my Jersey accent is flaring up. They are sometimes overcome with hormones that cause them to do gross, piggish things. It's why during the episode Brian in Love, when he was subconsciously in love with Lois, he started having accidents. And it wasn't until he went to therapy that they went away. In Screw the Pooch, Brian is having those same feelings once again, only this time they don't really seem to have a cause, and they're more physical. Why? I don't know. Do male dogs go through heat? At one point, he even does this.
Here, girl. Sorry, I thought I smelled cookies.
Brian, you're in public. Control thyself. And because he can't just go to therapy like before for some reason, he tries to go on vacation with the Griffins and the Pewtersmiths. While there, he meets Carter's beloved dog, Seabreeze, who unlike Brian, is actually a dog.
Come over here and meet Seabreeze, my prize-winning dog. Isn't she a perfect specimen? I mean, look at these legs and that beautiful coat. Yes, she is a beautiful dog. And that's okay.
Seabreeze is a champion race dog, and Brian is attracted to her and her pheromones. Hormones? I don't know how that works. At the big race, he jumps onto the track and does what dogs do. Gross, there's people watching, maybe even kids. It seems like that one episode of The Simpsons, only grosser. To me, this is bad because it gave Carter a scandal he did not deserve. Don't get me wrong, Carter is a bad person, but outside of playing poker, he did not really do anything particularly bad to warrant a punishment this episode. He even found a way to bond with Peter.
Neat. This guy's deep, Carter. Where'd you find him?
He's my son-in-law.
But the reason it's so low is because Seabreeze was a dog, not a person. Sorry, I must watch my microaggressions. And second, he spent the episode trying to make up for it by being a father, when he thought Seabreeze was pregnant with his puppies. Aw, poor dog. When you think about it, she got violated twice, and then she got disowned for it.
You're a filthy...
Besides, I at least want to include one thing Brian did from the pre-cancellation seasons, just to keep from seeming biased. And to me, outside of stealing the trophy, and love thy trophy, this is the worst thing he did back in the day. Don't worry, not to spoil anything, but I think the rest of this list comes from the later seasons. Wink wink. Number 9, giving the people in AA booze.
No, Peter, I'm gonna meet Jenny's cats.
What are you talking about? You hate cats.
I'm going to meet her cats.
Yes, I'm right. Okay, all right. You don't have to
It seems today that cartoons are not the biggest supporters when it comes to Alcoholics Anonymous. As we remember in South Park's Bloody Mary, they outright compared it to a cult and said that alcoholism was not a disease.
Alcoholism is a disease.
No, it's not.
It is a disease because it's a physical dependency. That makes it a disease.
No, cancer is a disease.
Granted, while I do think there's a difference between being an alcoholic and just having a problem with self-control, when it comes to drinking, while addiction isn't a disease like cancer, it's still a sickness in and of itself, and one that requires treatment and support. In Friends of Peter G, Brian and Peter go to the movies, and Peter sneaks in alcohol.
Let's talk about other movies we've seen.
That's an excellent idea. I like the madness of King George.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Really? Alcohol? You couldn't sneak in something fun like McDonald's or Burger King or tater tot casserole? What, I had it for dinner the other night. With hash browns instead of tater tots because we ran out. It was so good. Brian and Peter get in trouble and are forced to attend AA meetings. Predictably, neither want to go. At the first meeting, Brian acts like a total brat and says that everybody there is a boring old stiff and they could really use a drink.
They've just traded one addiction for another. Their life goes from being all about drinking to being all about AA. The only difference is when it's all about drinking, they're more fun.
Yeah, I'm sure Sarah Lynn said the same thing. During the next meeting, he and Peter bring in a bunch of alcohol and give it to everybody in attendance.
You all stopped drinking because you were hurting your loved ones. But you can't hurt them if they don't know you're drunk. Let's make this our sanctuary.
I wants me that beer.
At least when Beavis and Butthead got the AA members drunk, they weren't allowed to drink because they weren't 21. That's what I call karma. Later, when the cops show up because of a noise complaint, the AA members sing Mr. Booze to distract them and get out of it.
Wow, you guys, I'm impressed that you're taking your sentence so seriously, and I know that the court will be happy to hear this too. Now, if you'll just keep it down.
To me, this is one of the worst things Brian has done because he never learned his lesson. He gave a bunch of alcoholics their trigger just because he did not want to own up to his mistakes, which I think is actually number 8 of the 12 steps. Maybe he had a point in being forced to go there.
You have a different view, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. Are we allowed to have a different view?
Brian, to be fair, I think there's a version of AA meant for atheists. You just had to politely ask. Now, I do agree with Brian that he's not an alcoholic. If anything, he's kind of like Randy where he probably shouldn't drink so much, or at worst, just watch how much he drinks. But he doesn't know that about everybody else. He's making decisions for them, and he has to be a preachy a-hole once again. Why, man? Just take the punishment and then don't be a nuisance afterwards. What makes this worse for me is that the episode had Peter learn from Def what would happen if he went through the 2 extremes, either becoming a full-blown alcoholic or never touching alcohol. And the lesson was, it's okay to drink, so long as you do it in moderation.
You members of the human race have the ability to send a man to the moon and make Justin Long a movie star. Don't you think you can learn to put the bottle down just sometimes?
Where is Brian's trip with death? That would be an Awesome Sauce sequel episode. Speaking of, what do y'all think of the theory that during the Mr. Booze number, everybody was really singing super drunk, and Joe noticed but he felt bad and just left? Just saying, I could buy it. Number 8, lying to a blind girl.
Some things are worth waiting for.
Wow, you're really a true gentleman.
Yep, not too many of us left.
As we all know, several things will never happen. Pigs will never fly. I will never admit to being a furry because I'm not a furry. Why would I admit to something that's not true? And Brian Griffin will never meet a girl who he loves as an unconditional equal because he cannot get over himself. Like Brian, imagine how bad he would be if he were really human. In The Blind Side, Brian goes to the Clam during disability night and meets a girl named Kate, who is attractive and wears pink, or lavender, or pinkish lavender. On Wednesdays, we wear pinkish lavender. The kicker, Kate is blind.
Oh, my God,
Hey, check out Brian with a blind chick.
They do get on well until Brian learns that she dislikes dogs.
Ugh, our stupid neighbor's dog barks 24/7. God, I hate dogs. They're just slobbery, annoying, needy little bastards. I'm just not really a dog person, I guess.
You know, I don't hate dogs. I just hate caring for them. Outside of eating and cleaning up after them, cats take care of themselves. But as a cat-themed YouTuber, Kate is right. Boo, dogs! What should Brian do? Tell Kate he's a dog, just not a talky, barky dog? Nah, fam. That would be too easy. He makes up a bunch of scenarios to continue getting into her pants. Like this one scene.
Ah, the winds of Paris. Isn't that what they say?
Oh, that breeze is gorgeous. And I think I smell Croissants?
You have an amazing sense of smell.
Yeah, that's not cool, man. Good thing Kate pays him back in kind.
And stay away from my girlfriend!
Brian, I know karate too. I can help you.
You stay out of this, lady! Oh!
I got one! I think I got one!
Eventually, Kate wants him to meet her parents, who, unlike her, can actually see.
See?
Not funny, Stewie. Only I am allowed to make jokes, and he has to disguise himself as a person.
This one's a hero, is what happened. Rescued 2 children from a burning building. Can you imagine? Not quite in time. They were both horribly burned, had that sort of creme brulee face going on.
One disastrous dinner later, and the cat is out of the bag. Silly. It's such a silly Billy. And Kate breaks up with him for not being honest.
You know what, Brian? I could have gotten over the fact that you're a dog, because I really do care about you, and I feel like we had a connection. But I can't get over the fact that you lied to me.
You know what also sucks about this episode? They went through the effort of having Stella, Peter's new co-worker, speak ASL, because she's voiced by Marlee Matlin, a deaf actress.
Nice to meet you.
Well, what is this? We doing a new secret handshake now?
No, Griffin, she's deaf.
Oh. Can she read lips?
Yes, I can.
Again, they put in the effort, and they just ignored that opportunity. I don't think Stella has ever had her own episode. Come on, wouldn't it be better if Brian dated Stella? What was the point of even including her? Sorry, Blue's Clues inspired baby me to learn sign language, even if I mostly just know basic stuff and the ABCs of finger spelling. And I know that at one convention somewhere, Steve is crying himself to sleep in a big red chair somewhere watching this train wreck. So Family Guy... Sorry, I was speaking in ASL and I sarcastically said thank you, but I did it with my left hand because my right hand is the one holding the phone. Number 7, Brian writes a bestseller.
This is just a phone number.
I know.
I'm a little creeped out.
Hey, congratulations. Somebody famous now hates you.
Okay, many people wanted me to talk about Married with Cancer, the 2-parter, where Brian marries a woman, with cancer, who has 2 weeks left to live. Many people hated it, and I did go through the effort of watching the 2-parter to see if it was list-worthy. But Brian writes a bestseller 1 out over the 2-parter and over Brian's Got a Brand New Bag. The reason being that during the 2-parter, Brian did not do it for the attention or for the moral dessert. The problem was he didn't really think through the consequences or the fact that he and Jess did not really have a relationship outside of doing it in random places. It was kind of like a more lighthearted, consensual version of Quagmire's Quagmire. And even if he did not like Jess after she survived and gained weight, he still stuck by her, albeit begrudgingly. Plus, after Jess came back to life, which I'm surprised did not lead to Brian making another atheist rant. Thank you so much, writers. This is coming from an agnostic. The two realized they did not work as a couple, and arguably Jess was sort of worse than Brian that time around. After he gained weight and became high maintenance, she wanted to put him down, and nearly succeeded.
See you after my hip surgery.
You won't be needing this anymore.
Thanks. Goodbye, Brian.
You mean see you soon, right? Wait, why won't I need my collar?
But do you want to know the main relationship Brian neglects, like the most? His relationship with Stewie. It reminds me of olive juice, rotten olive juice. Olive juice that tastes more like olive tongue. During Brian Writes a Bestseller, Brian learns that his novel, Faster Than the Speed of Love, has bombed. You know, I could make a joke about bombs, but I won't. Not because I want to offend people, it's just, I'll be honest, I can't think of a good one. You guys do it for me. Later, Brian becomes disillusioned about writing because everybody is writing self-help books, which I don't blame him. However, as we know, Brian has to prove to both society and to himself that he is totally worthy of respect and admiration and fear and idolization. Out of spite, Brian writes his own self-help book. Wish it, want it, do it, in a day.
And done. There it is, Stewie. 3 hours, 27 minutes, and I got myself one big steaming pile of book.
Now, I don't like to say that something being written in a day is necessarily bad. I mean, we've all crammed out essays the night before. South Park takes 6 days to make an episode. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was written in 3 days. You can write a book in a super short time, and it could be great, or you can spend 40 years and it could be crappy. However, Brian's book is crappy. It's mostly just blank pages.
What are all the things you want most in the world? Use the following blank pages to write down all of your dreams and desires. You know, if people want crap, I'll give them crap.
Still, the book somehow becomes a bestseller.
I used to think that John Lennon was kind of a jerk for saying the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. But now, I mean, it's like, I'm not saying I am, but I get it.
Is it bad I felt the same feeling when I started getting big? Maybe it's because I was listening to the Heather soundtrack when I did? Too bad the fame starts to go to Brian's head, and he acts like a self-righteous jerk. Oh, but Kitty, Brian always acts like a self-righteous jerk. This time, it's worse than normal, okay?
Because... Well, I can... Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the episode, Brian gets to be on Bill Maher, another one of my dreams. And while waiting to go on, he rants off at Stewie.
Oh, sorry.
I am done with you. Do you hear me? Done. Get out of here now.
Brian, please.
You're fired.
Wow, good for you, man. He's your agent, and practically your only friend at this point. Good thing, when he goes on Bill Maher, he gets what's coming to him. Public humiliation.
Yes, Dana has made a career in comedy. I don't think he's ever done anything as laughable as this book.
What do you want? I wrote it in a day. I think it's crap, too.
Has E.L. James ever been on Bill Maher? If no, something tells me this would happen. Still, Brian goes home and pretends to learn a lesson.
You know, sure, you were in a little over your head, but...
Whoa. I was in over my head?
Yeah, but Stewie, this isn't about all the things you did wrong. It's about me apologizing.
Why did this episode beat out 3 others? Well, I already talked about Married with Cancer, but Brian's got a brand new bag. His actions in that episode were hypocritical, and the episode just had to have Rita act super old for some reason, despite Brian insisting otherwise. But his actions were minor compared to here, and Rita did call him out pretty effectively.
You cheated on me. That's what happened today. You can rationalize it any way you want, but to me, all that shows is that you're an immature guy who doesn't realize what a catch I am.
This time around, he insulted his closest friend once he finally got famous, and the apology he gave was super hollow. You know, I'm a writer. I mean, I spend my life writing video essays. To me, Brian has always been a cautionary tale of fear and lust and pride, and how to not conduct yourself when you get into the sport. Speaking of, remember that other time Brian compromised his morals for his writing? Number 6, 420. No, there's not a clever title. Literally just the whole episode, just like before. All of it.
This is so humiliating. I sold out everything I believed in, and I have nothing to show for it.
And Stewie got to build a nice little fort with all of your unsold books.
My house is made of mediocrity.
Depending on where you live in the United States, there's this thing called weed, which is green. It goes by many names, like devil's lettuce, pot, grass, and Mary Jane green time. And in many places, it's now legal, like in New Jersey. See? It's fun here. Anyhow, this was not always the case. In 420, Brian gets busted for having weed on his person, even though Rhode Island legalized medical weed ever since 2006, and this episode aired in 2009, but you do you, show. Brian gets arrested and rants about how unfair the system is.
Pot is illegal because William Randolph Hearst ran a smear campaign to protect his interests in the timber industry, because hemp was poised to replace wood as an inexpensive raw material for the manufacture of paper.
You know what? Maybe he's got a point. Apparently, Google and Adam Ruins Everything says he's kind of right, and I like Adam Conover, and he's got good hair, so I'll listen to him. Too bad he keeps smoking anyway, and now he has to do a drug test.
Brian, under your probation, you're required to submit to random drug tests. I need some urine.
You mean right now?
Yes, right now.
Now, as a Norker, I know several ways to get out of drug tests, but unfortunately, I cannot say them because this is a YouTube channel and I don't want to be held responsible for any criminal acts. Sorry you live in a suburban hell, Brian, but you knew the risks. Needing clean urine, Brian decides to take Stewie's.
My God, that is just sick!
No, what's sick is making illegal when it's been proven that it does less damage to you than alcohol.
Doesn't change the fact you were gonna, does not change the fact you were gonna steal a baby's urine, which is disgusting. Brian tries to get Quahog to legalize the green jeans by singing a super catchy song. Okay, you know what, that's good. Brian stuck to his morals and made pot legal for everyone.
Okay, here's Ollie Williams with a Blackie weather forecast. How's the weather look, Ollie?
Not too bad.
Right on.
Plus, the town is apparently much better off. What could be so bad about it? Unfortunately, Carter is hemorrhaging money in the timber industry, kind of foreshadowed by Brian's earlier speech, and he convinces Brian to restore the status quo. How? Well, not by showing that there's some new study that pot is bad, or that the citizens of Quahog can't be trusted to make good decisions for themselves. No, he gives him a bribe.
You can be a superstar author. All you gotta do is make an impassioned anti-pot speech in public.
And that's why pot is bad!
Good thing this is one of those times where Brian gets what's coming to him, as his book is published, but it's also universally panned.
Brian Griffin's Faster Than the Speed of Love has astonishingly not sold a single copy thanks to universal panning by literary critics.
I mean, it would be with a title like that. It got what it deserved. Maybe it would be funny if I could smoke before I read it. Oh wait, I can't. Thanks, Brian. Number 5, trying to sleep with underage girls. Yes, you heard me. Girls, as in the plural, more than one.
Hey, you know what, Patty? Why don't you take the extra one?
Wow, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, that's cool, Brian. Will you buy me a hat at Lids?
No.
In Yug Yilly math, Brian slept with an underage girl and paid her off with a Barnes & Noble gift card.
Are you 16?
I will be next September.
Well, I think someone has a Barnes & Noble gift card coming for their silence.
Alright, this one was awful. The only saving grace was he didn't know. With scammed Yankees, he doesn't get that same forgiveness. One day, Brian listens in on Meg and her friends and finds that because they're teenagers, they're loud and annoying and boring. Not helping is how Meg now needs a ride to field hockey. Well, her and all her friends. Which sucks, but hey, at least they'll be out. Out of the house and out of his hair, and he's a dog, so he's got a lot of hair. Before he drives home, he finds that somebody left their gym bag in his car and walks into the girls' locker room to return it. Creep. Rather than just sending a text or calling them, there he spies Meg's friend, Patty, and finds that she has a great body. I'm not trying to be weird, The problem is she has a butterface and dresses frumpy and plain. Oh, kind of like me, except for the butterface. Like usual, Brian decides to get into her pants. Ew.
What the hell is going on? You're hitting on Patty and it's gross. She's 18. Stop it.
Me? Meg, I am not even going to dignify that.
Okay, Anne, Bojack Horseman wants to have a word with you. Now, yes, what Brian wanted to do is technically legal, but that doesn't mean it's correct. It's still gross. She's in high school, and she's Meg's friend. That's like a betrayal of trust right there. Not helping is all of the weird stuff he does to get her attention.
Hey there, babe.
Hey, Brian.
You ready? Got the smash mouth queued up in the pre.
You know, not so fun fact, I wrote this script on the same day that their lead singer died, and I recorded it the night after. Poor Guy Fieri. My mom loved diners, drive-ins, and dives, but probably not the title, it's like impossible to say. Good thing Meg comes on the scene to set the record straight.
You don't have to do this, Patty. Brian's just taking advantage of you.
What? That's crazy!
What? Why would he do that?
Because you have an amazing body.
I do?
To be honest, I've always wanted Meg's friends to have more of a focus. I mean, they've been around since practically the beginning, and we barely know anything about them. At most, they're just there to give her slightly more attention or to act as plot devices. But if this is what's gonna happen, maybe they're better off staying in the background. Sorry, Esther. I know you really wanted your own episode.
That's something I like. Ah, shut up, Esther.
Number 4, selling Quagmire horrible property.
Okay, I'll take it. All right, you won't be sorry.
Yeah, that condo looks awesome. You're making a smart move, Quagmire.
Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff. One of the tragedies of later season Family Guy is the weirdo hatred that developed between Quagmire and Brian. If I had to guess, outside of the hypocritical speech, it's because Quagmire's either projecting his issues onto Brian, or as a cat lover, he hates the fact that Brian's a dog. I mean, that was the whole point of Forget Me Not. But I have a video coming out about them soon, so I shall hold my tongue. In Brian the Closer, Brian wrecks his teeth and now looks like a sock full of butter. Nobody wants to help him, so he goes to Quagmire and cries. And even if Quagmire hates him, he still decides to pay for the surgery.
Here, just take this.
What is this?
That's my dentist. He'll bill me. I've got an account.
I won't forget this, Glenn Quagmire.
Don't ever say my name like that, okay?
Wow, what an awful man. Helping somebody he dislikes. Ugh, evil. Too bad Quagmire bought him teeth that make him look like a car salesman.
Hey, maybe you could help us build the dam, if you think you got the chops for it. Well, think about it. It's something to chew on.
Which wouldn't be bad if not for the fact it also makes him a great real estate agent because people trust him. Okay, so far so good. What's the big deal? Later on, Brian has to sell a rundown property because if he does, he'll be able to become a partner at his real estate firm? Store? I don't know what you call that. I'm just gonna call it office because I used to work at one of those places. And likely remembering that one time he and Stewie tried to flip a house, he knows nobody's gonna buy it and it's gonna be a Herculean effort. Good thing he remembers his buddy Quagmire and his special bonus.
Looks like I found my sucker.
Brian sells Quagmire the crappy property, knowing it's crappy and knowing what Quagmire did for him. Good thing there is a 72-hour escape clause.
This is a dump!
Well, maybe it's still got a nice ocean view.
The harbor is poisoned.
Knowing Quagmire will come after him, Brian runs and sequesters himself like a frickin' coward. Oh, and he doesn't tell Quagmire about the clause. He finds out about it from Joe.
Here it is. You've got 72 hours after closing to rescind the purchase. State law.
Thank God.
Quagmire tracks Brian down, and this happens.
You're honest and direct and compassionate, and that is 72 hours. Enjoy your crap hole.
He had it coming, he had it coming. If you'd have seen it, I bet you would have done the same. Brian does not like Quagmire, and Quagmire does not like him. But Quagmire still did something nice for somebody he hates for practically no reason. He didn't have to do that, and that's how he repays him. Maybe Brian would have a point if Quagmire was acting like an a-hole to him, or talked down to him, like, haha, you loser, you look awful, here's some teeth. Now you look like a beaver. But no, he just gave him the teeth and that was it. Maybe outside of dating Cheryl Teagues, Quagmire does have a reason to hate Brian. I know I would. Number 3, Miss Emily.
I had a bad experience last time I went to the movies.
We're good friends, aren't we, Milo?
We're best friends, Otis.
No! No! I reject the premise of this!
Is it just me, or is Miss Emily the total antithesis to Jillian? Jillian loves kids, and she's a little stupid. Miss Emily hates kids and neglects them, and she's an airhead who does not care about safety. I thought Tracy Flanagan was Jillian's polar opposite because of Wade and how she treats Dylan, but mayhaps I was wrong. And be careful what you fish for. Brian finds out that Stewie's going to an illegal daycare center with a negligent teacher named Miss Emily. Ugh, they all have the nicest names. Where stuff like this happens.
Oh, what happened to that kid?
He fell off a stool trying to turn off Maury Povich.
Brian is willing to call out the teacher until he realizes that Emily is kind of hot and has a perfect body and she can eat whatever she wants and not gain a pound.
Excuse me, are you Miss Emily?
Yeah, hi. Who are you?
Brian. Brian Steele?
Like usual, he tries to sniff out a bone. What, I can't say get into her pants. She's in a bikini, while ignoring her, even trying to justify everything she's doing.
And by the way, I actually think she's doing a pretty good job. She's teaching you guys independence.
We're one! Independence means we die!
Keep in mind that at one point, Stewie, who's supposed to be his best friend, stood up to Miss Emily, and she ripped his arm out of the socket.
I finally stood up for all of us and told Miss Emily we should be given a proper lunch and not just what's left over from her Baja Fresh. And she said I shouldn't raise my voice and pulled me really hard into the other room and my arm came out of its socket.
And when Brian found out, he did this to him rather than tell Lois. Brian is all hot and bothered until he learns that Miss Emily has a boyfriend.
Who was that?
That's my boyfriend, Devin. Are you ready for lunch?
What you did to these kids? There is a special place in hell for people like you.
It's over, Brian. You don't have the moral high ground. You should be in jail with her. Sorry, I don't really have anything to talk about here, just what he did kind of got under my skin because I like kids. And this is what he does. Maybe it's a good thing he never raised Dylan. Oh, speaking of Dylan, Number 2, exploiting Dylan for fame.
Aren't you supposed to be having lunch with Dylan?
I've been thinking about it, and I haven't seen him in years, and at this point, I just don't see what could possibly be gained from me getting together with him.
One problem when it comes to deciding when a character went downhill is trying to find the exact point they hit rock bottom. For Brian, it was Not All Dogs Go to Heaven, because it was the point where the show tried to turn him into Seth MacFarlane as a dog. But that doesn't always mean it's noticeable. When did I start to realize Brian went downhill? The episode, Brian's a Bad Father. What? It's in the title. I did not review episodes back then. I was literally 14.
Joe Pesci thought we were talking to him because his name is Joe. Oh, you don't know who Joe Pesci is because you're 14.
Yeah, so that joke was pretty funny to me back then. Now, Brian's son Dylan is one of the most fascinating characters in Family Guy because he's a normal person. He was conceived shortly after his parents had this conversation.
It happened on numerous occasions and I was too afraid to tell anyone because I felt like somehow it was my fault.
So, you do go all the way?
Sorry, but this is a list of the worst things Brian has ever done. It sort of qualifies. In former life of Brian, Brian finds out he somehow has a son. And despite being in high school, Dylan is dropped off on Brian's doorstep, kind of like Anna Lee. Eventually, with some TLC, and also a little bit of pot. See, Brian, why did you have to sell that pot? Brian turns him into the perfect son, even if Brian himself turns into this.
I do not want Dylan eating white bread.
Brian, I promise you, it's fine.
Lois, I will decide what is best for my child.
To restore the status quo, Dylan decides to leave the Griffin household to go live with his mom, as his father now gave him the tools to help improve both of their lives.
I'll always be grateful to you for turning my life around. But now, thanks to you, I finally have a chance to transform my mom's life in the same way you transformed mine.
Something I think we all know is that just because you don't live with your parents doesn't mean you don't have a relationship with them. Hopefully not that way. Cell phones exist and you can always go visit if need be. Besides, as we remember from American Dad, kids are supposed to leave you. It means you did a good job. Unless you're an Afro-Latina Italian like me, in which case you just move across the street or around the block. Sorry, some stereotypes are true. Too bad the show doesn't agree with me. In episodes like Quagmire's mom keep insisting that Brian abandoned Dylan like a sack of hot potatoes.
Quagmire, you're a grown man, responsible for his own choices. Seems kind of cowardly to blame someone else for your problems.
Brian abandoned his own son, by the way.
Really? I feel like this whole plot point would have been more interesting if they switched around the roles. Maybe Dylan starts to think that Brian abandoned them because he was never there for them growing up. Or he doesn't like how his father turned into a preachy drunk or something else. So he abandons his father and stops contacting him. And Brian would have to work to regain Dylan's trust. Instead, we get Brian's a bad father. You know, it sucks that unlike Beavis, Dylan knows who his father is because he can't just tell himself his dad went out to buy a pack of smokes and never came back. That's what happened to Nelson's dad. In the episode, Dylan ends up getting a role on a Disney sitcom. And because Brian's writing career is in the toilet, he decides to be a reverse Nepo baby.
You want a job on my show?
Hey, don't put the universe's words in my mouth, okay?
He sweet talks Dylan into getting him a writing gig on the show and acts like an obnoxious a-hole in the writer's room.
Hi, guys. Yes, I am that Brian Griffin. You probably have my novel, but just so you know, in here, I'm just one of the guys.
You know, once again, as a writer myself, Brian sucks more for me now that I'm all grown up. With Brian, I feel hatred. With Diane, I feel acceptance. And I don't want to continue this joke, but I wonder if this is why Seth MacFarlane no longer works on Family Guy. Sorry, the joke was right there. Somehow, Brian succeeds in making some tweaks to Dylan's script.
Cut! Your line is, "That's right, Cameron."
I know. My dad wrote that one for me.
And gets fired.
Again with this?
Hey, 7th grade can be hell.
Brian, this is not Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And Dylan, angry at what his father has done, goes off and disowns him.
Dylan, there you are. Listen, you can't let them fire me. You're the star of the show.
Dad, believe me, I want you to work here with me, but you can't keep doing things like that.
To me, this is bad because not only did he exploit his own son for fame, one of my fears as I climb up the subscriber ladder, he nearly ruined Dylan's acting career to advance his writing career, and he didn't care until he got caught. Remember, one reason Macaulay Culkin stopped getting roles was because his father was his manager, and he was a diva to work with. And if they can't deal with your manager, they're not gonna want to deal with you. Just a pro-life tip to any of my fans who want to be stage parents. Stewie, in his Zack Sawyer persona, tells Dylan to give Brian another chance he does not deserve.
He sent me here with a message. He said he can't believe he was so selfish. It's like you held a mirror up to him and he could finally see how poorly he'd been treating you.
And before you say anything, yes, I know that this episode had a fudge load of deleted scenes, and those scenes do kind of redeem Brian. And so, he did initially mean well, he just got carried away. But canon-wise, this is what we got, meaning it's the second worst thing Brian has ever done. Because nothing will prepare you for number 1. Number 1. Like I said above, I consider this the hardest top 10 list I've ever written. I practically played shuffleboard with each entry at least twice. Originally, this section was number 4, then number 2, and finally, number 1. You'll soon see why. The worst thing Brian Griffin has ever done outside of existing is giving people herpes.
What if it wasn't called herpes? Like what if it was called Boppo? Huh? Oh, I got a little Boppo. Oh, that's cute. Ah, I want Boppo.
And you'll soon see why. In Herpy the Love Sore, Brian and Stewie are watching a show where 2 guys become blood brothers.
Ew, what's Clint Eastwood doing with that Indian chief?
Oh, they're just becoming blood brothers.
Blood brothers? What the devil is that?
If you're unaware, blood brothers are one of the biggest signs of trust between 2 people, similar to pinky swears or milk brothers. You know, I'm surprised they did not make an episode about the milk thing yet. I'm just saying, Brian and Stewie became parents. Anything's possible. Anyway, the practice normally involves you and the other person cutting your palms and shaking hands. The blood is meant to mingle and bond you for life. It's purely ceremonial, but hey, some people like to do it. Stewie wants to do it himself, to prove his bond with Brian, who he considers his best friend, and Brian readily agrees.
You happy?
Actually, yes. I mean, I really feel the bond, Brian. I feel like we're closer now. You know, more connected, more intertwined.
Yeah, I guess in a way we are.
Okay, that's nothing too major. I'm sure we all know from health class and Vampire Diaries that blood sharing isn't such a good thing. You can get countless diseases after all, but I'm certain that Brian is a trustworthy fellow. The next morning, Stewie wakes up with herpes.
What the hell? Ow! Ew!
He's a barnacle boy. Herpes, if you're unaware, is an infection that stays with you for life.
Look, relax. It's not that big a deal.
Not that big a deal? It's a disgusting, unsightly, unsavory disease, and it lasts for life!
It would be one thing if Brian did not know he gave it to him. It's still bad, don't get me wrong. He should have been more responsible, but you could at least have the excuse he didn't know, not a justification. But nope, he knows and he does not care.
Let me see. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it! Okay, fine, I admit it, I gave you herpes.
Oh, and that's not the worst of it.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to let you know you're not alone. Not only that, but I also got it from Brian. We're blood brothers, too.
Question, I thought herpes only spread through contact with infected areas and saliva. At least it was herpes. Most of the population has that in some way, shape, or form. Ever gotten a cold sore or chickenpox? It has you in the palm of its hand. If Brian wasn't careful and the show was being realistic, he still could have given Stewie hepatitis, HIV, malaria, the West Nile virus, and Zika. Granted, if we're being honest, dogs can spread herpes to humans, so this episode really should not have happened. To me, this is the worst thing Brian has done because he had no good reason for doing it. With most of the other examples, they primarily started off as him trying to do the right thing, or doing something normal until his jerk instincts got the better of him. Here, he does not care. He gave Stewie a lifelong infection for no other reason than, so what? It's embarrassing. I didn't want to say it, which is not an excuse. Think about it if it went like this. Oh, I have AIDS. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I was embarrassed. But is it really a big deal? We did not use protection. Jared has AIDS, and he lost a bunch of weight. See what I mean? And you know what's worse? Like worse than his response, or the fact he did not tell Stewie? This isn't the first time he's done it. Stewie learns he pulled the same Blood Brothers crap scam with Chris.
Yup, he knew he had herpes and he didn't say anything.
For reasons I don't know. Well, I mean, I heard the theory that Brian wants to infect more people, so he plays the movie and just lies in wait. Who knows? And later, he tries to get in the pants of a rich girl without disclosing that he has herpes.
Ew! I'm sorry, Brian. I've got to go.
Damn it, you guys, her dad's really rich.
Brian, they were helping her. And at the end of the episode, while he gets Chris to forgive him for something minor.
What do you guys want from me?
I want to drive your Prius to the end of the block all by myself.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yay!
Unfortunately, this is Chris. He has the attention span of a goldfish. He apologizes to Stewie, but he apologizes the wrong way. He acts like he didn't give Stewie enough praise for his drawing, or that he didn't show up to his school play, or that he took the last piece of cake, or that he laughed about him behind his back.
I guess I was just too embarrassed to admit I had herpes. It was a rotten thing to do, and I promise I will never lie to you again. Thanks, Brian.
No, these situations are not comparable. Comparable? One of those two? No, many people might disagree with me on this, but I think this episode was somewhat fixable, which makes it hurt more for me. 98% of the time, I find that even the weirdest plot point is salvageable. If they wanted to fix what happened here, there's plenty they could have done instead. Maybe Brian doesn't know he has herpes, and when Stewie and Chris get infected, they try to track down who gave it to him. Or maybe Stewie keeps insisting that he wants to be blood brothers, and Brian keeps saying no. But Stewie won't take no for an answer, and Brian is forced to shake hands with him. Or does the whole ceremony when Brian's asleep, kind of like that South Park episode. Or heck, Stewie's a genius, maybe have him discover the cure for herpes. But he won't give it to Brian until Brian owns up to what he did. It could be like that episode with Carter and the cure for cancer. Regardless, to me, this is the worst thing Brian has ever done. Case closed. And it always will be, just like his herpes. Bye.
Oh, you! Okay, now just stay like this and let Peter and Lois finish their thing.